All of these amazing time lapses you're about to see were created with iPhone 17 Pro and a revolutionary app called ReeLapse. Now, I have used the ReeLapse app before about 18 months ago, and even back then when we were all using the iPhone 15, I was blown away by this piece of tech. Going into 2026, the developers over at ReefLex have released their 2.0 version, which takes full advantage of the iPhone 17 Pro's features with some big upgrades. Now, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this application, I have to say wholeheartedly that this app is without doubt the most useful app on my iPhone after, say, the camera, email, and WhatsApp. Because without it, making time lapses is a lot of hard work and a lot of gear. Normally a full frame camera, multiple lenses, big tripod, perhaps a gimbal, ND filters, and hours of post-process editing. With ReeLapse, all you need is your phone, which, let's face it, is going to be in your pocket most of the time. Now, why is ReeLapse time-lapse so good? Well, one of the reasons is because the inbuilt time-lapse feature on the iPhone is so bad, and Apple simply haven't put any effort into improving it since it was released, in 2014. Even the iPhone 17 Pro has a pretty average 1080p output with no manual camera settings and pretty amateur jittery footage. ReeLapse not only offers us resolution which is larger than 4K, it also records in Apple ProRes 422 with motion blur effects built in, so no need for ND filters or slow shutter speeds. Now, looking at the interface to ReeLapse, it is very similar to the original build 1.0, and if you want a detailed breakdown of all the available features, how this all works, then maybe watch my original video where I cover things like manual camera controls, exposure, etc. I'll pop links up here or in the description below. But in this video, I want to focus on the brand new features, starting with Apple ProRes. So Apple ProRes 422 comes in HQ, which stands for high quality, and this is pretty much the industry standard for high quality video production. Normal 422 has slightly more manageable file sizes, and LT, which stands for light, this has a lower bitrate of 102 megabits per second. If you choose the HEVC file format, the rendered time-lapse will have a much more finished color grade, much like the original ReeLapse 1.0. And these bitrates can be lowered from 100 megabits per second down to a proxy file size of 40 megabits per second. Right, so we're going to do a time-lapse of Big Ben in central London. We've got the clouds moving behind it. We've got the London Underground sign in the foreground for a bit of interest. And because we're dealing with a slow moving subject like a clock, we need some long time-lapse effects. So we're going to go into effects and choose cloud and a 2-second effect, which is similar to the shutter speed on a regular camera. And then the interval is going to be 2 seconds as well. Frames will do 150 frames, which will give us an output of 5 seconds. And it's going to take 12.5 minutes to do. Waiting game. So Big Ben is just passing through midday. The quality of Apple ProRes 422 HQ on the clock of Big Ben is exceptional, easily matching my full frame Sony Alpha camera. Right, so we're using the telephoto lens for this shot, all the way down onto the city with the clouds moving in the background, and we're going to go with a really long effect now because we want those clouds moving really quickly in the time lapse. So we're going to go with 3 seconds for the effect and 3-second interval. So capture time is going to be 17.5 minutes, so there's a lot of waiting around just for a 5-second output, but I think it's going to be well worth it. Right, so moment of truth, 17.5 minutes. We've waited to see what this looks like. Oh, that is nice. 5 seconds of sexiness right there. Well done, ReefLex. So another big upgrade is the available frame rate, and specifically 60 frames per second, which is an absolutely amazing feature to have when creating time-lapse because of the sheer speed of fluid motion during playback. So we're waiting for Tower Bridge to open. We've got a 2-second interval, 2-second effects, and obviously it's going to be very slow moving. Hey, thrilled about this.
One of the advantages of 60 frames per second is the ability to either keep the time-lapse at the recorded speed or slow down the time-lapse in post-production just as if it was shot at 30 frames per second.
I have to say, this is such a good little investment, this table tripod made by Small Rig. Just means that you can get in places you can't with this thing. And it means that you can get professional looking time lapses with very little gear. So to truly appreciate just how smooth and fluid these motion blur effects are on 60 frames per second clips, I recommend viewing them directly on your iPhone or in a 60 frames per second timeline. This YouTube video was filmed at the standard 30 frames per second, so it's not going to really do justice to the brilliance of ReeLapse. So I'm gingerly balancing this phone on the handrail here and being careful of pickpockets coming past. Now, creating regular time-lapse with, say, a mirrorless camera, because it's essentially a sequence of raw images stacked together to create a fluid motion video, we've always had the option to use those individual frames as standalone images, and you might just hit the jackpot on a few of them. With ReeLapse 2.0, we can do exactly the same. So within the gear icon menu, we now have an option called backup. And here we have two options. The first is to save a backup video. So not only does it save to the iPhone's photo library, it will also save to the app's document directory. So you've always got two, just in case you accidentally delete one. The second option is save individual frames as high quality JPEGs from within that Apple ProRes time-lapse footage. So as an example, if we choose that time-lapse that we shot on Tower Bridge where all of the buses were coming past, let's open up our files directory and choose the ReeLapse folder and choose the time-lapse and find an individual frame that might be suitable as a photo. Let's choose this one, and now we can send it to our desktop and we can start the editing process. How cool is that? And after some creative color adjustments, contrast, we end up with a beautiful photograph taken from within a time lapse that we can share to our social media. Now, I love taking time lapses like these because you can get these boats just passing through the scene every now and again. Because we're doing a 12-minute time lapse, you're bound to capture something at some point. Now, if you look really closely, you can actually see the motion blur effects on that boat passing through. It's very subtle. You can just about see it happening. So using the telephoto lens attached to the telephoto camera on the iPhone, we can get incredible reach all the way down to Tower Bridge. 100mm becomes 200mm. So let's talk about this little beauty, the 240mm Super Telephoto G-Series lens. I've reviewed this before on the channel. I'll pop links up here and in the description. Now, to clear up any confusion, it's called 240mm because when used with the iPhone 15 and 16 Pro Max models, you do indeed have a focal equivalent of 240mm. When attached to the iPhone 17 Pro, we have a slightly shorter 200mm, but with a much higher resolution camera, so if you were to crop in, the results would be kind of negligible. Now, if you're using the standard inbuilt camera app on the iPhone to take photos or videos, because we have that ×8 optical quality telephoto option, what you're actually getting is 400mm with this thing. Check out these examples. Setting up for a shot on the Mall in central London, we're about half a mile from Buckingham Palace here. This is the iPhone's ultra-wide lens, wide-angle lens, telephoto ×8, and finally attaching the Super Telephoto G-Series lens, we can get an equivalent of 400mm and incredible compression. Right, so for this composition, we're using the telephoto lens to peer through the looking glass. We've got Westminster right in the distance, and then we've got the London Eye pods just coming into the frame from above. Quite a nice shot. There's a pigeon walking through my shot here. Oi! Right, so for this time lapse, we're using the light trails with 3-second effects, half-second intervals. So if you're interested in this incredible app made by the team over at Reflex, I'll pop links in the description below. The 240mm Super Telephoto G-Series lens, this is also made by the same company. And if you're into your macro photography, then Reflex offers magnetic macro add-ons in either 200 or 300mm focus distances. And the quality that you can get with an iPhone is quite brilliant. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more photography content, and I'll see you on the flip side.